finding soul manifesting in their particular life. And looking back at the kind of the evolution of their life, the present moment, their longings for the future, what has worked, what hasn't worked, what resonates, what doesn't resonate. And that conversation feels like it's sort of tapping into what I would kind of describe as sort of the way in which sacred is breathing in this moment that we all share, right? It's very connected to real time, and how beautiful that is, and how I think how dynamic that is. And it's refreshed my sense of kind of what is my role as someone who helps facilitate spiritual community life, in that what a wondrous thing to, rather than just tethering it solely to a historic tradition, how can we as well tether it to the dynamism of the current swirling of the spirit, if you will, or the movement of the sacred in our time? That's really what I think is kind of at the heartbeat of this conversation that we're having at 9 o'clock. So I'm glad that you're a part of it. The other reason I wanted to kind of summarize is I wasn't able to do an interview this past week. I've had some other things on my plate, and I've got one scheduled for next week that I'm super excited about, and we'll bring you some of those reflections next week. But so just to kind of catch us up, what have we gleaned along the way, just from my perspective? And maybe if you think back of all the conversations we've had to date, you too might be able to contribute. What did you get out of this series so far, and how has it maybe shaped some of your sense of how the journey is unfolding for you? So that's just something to think about as we get into conversation today. One of the things that I have, I think number one, one of the key pieces that has been a takeaway for me, and I want to honor this because I think there's some real not only depth to the concept, but it's also woven into all the conversations that I've had. So I don't know anybody who hasn't kind of tapped into this sort of energy. And that is, there is something to feeling as if your particular engagement of soul, whatever it happens to be, rests inside of what you might think of as a collective soul, or something grander than yourself. There wasn't anybody that I talked to. We talked to John and Cole, Bob, Joan, Victoria, and then this past week I was preparing for a memorial service for Lou, Deacon Lou, and really kind of seeing his spiritual story as well. All of those stories, none of them had this sense that their spiritual life was something that they, like, was an idea that they had in their head, right? That they made up, they had this cool idea and they're trying to implement that idea. None of them had that sense that this was something that they were creating on their own, but something that they were kind of either resting into, or falling into, or finding the, like, it's this greater whole that holds them. And it's almost like, it's almost not like an idea. It's more of an intuition-based thing, right? A sensation-based, almost like a kinesthetic trust that I am inside, maybe that's a good way of putting it, or I am floating within something that is mysterious, wonderful, puzzling, curious. Some thought of it as the more, that I'm held in this thing. And my role as a spiritual person is sort of to linger within this greater mystery or this greater wonder. And how beautiful that is, right? And we all know that, our lives are cluttered with all sorts of cultural forces and political forces and economic forces and the kind of the paradigm of language in which we live into. We know that these things we navigate each and every day, and so there's something almost like beautiful about entrusting yourself to something that's even, larger and grander than all of this constructed stuff that we normally have to navigate in our lives. And people kind of have faith in that it's there. And all the people had that sense of it, that it was present for them. It's like, it's almost like the breath that you take when you're reading poetry, right? The piece of poetry is this beautiful landscape. And as you read the poetry, the breath you bring to the reading is your place within that piece of poetry. The words as they come out of you that are grounded in this poetic engagement that you're having, that breathing, the breath between the words, that's what it feels like. It's like the whole is this beautiful piece of poetry, and we are but breathing inside of this poetic landscape. That might be one metaphor that might apply to the way in which people experience it. Or when you pause and get lost in a huge or expansive vista, right, down at the ocean or up on the mountaintop, and that vista carries you super small, like you just kind of lose yourself within that great grand vision that's before you. That moment can be like a metaphor for what people might be experiencing. I think too of like biblical images in the Christian tradition. There's all this talk in the biblical narratives about being at sea, right? Being in a boat at sea, and they're out on these deep waters, and their little boat is floating on this grander sea. And I think that too is a beautiful image. The memorial service that we celebrated for Lou yesterday, the concept that they wove in through that memorial service that was so beautiful, a testimony to someone who had a vigorous and engaged spiritual life, was how a river is in a sense always drawn to the great sea, right? We are always being pulled into this great ocean. And you could think of that as return, or you could think of that as the great cycle of life, as the ocean, the waters evaporate and move to the mountaintops again, and then we, like the river, continue to flow in the sea. So it's this beautiful image that I think is present for all the people I've talked to, that they've tapped into. It's not as if you got to work at it. Right? It just is there for you. And this capacity to be able to either experience it or tap into it or entrust yourself to it or seek sort of a greater wisdom by being engaged by it, that's the beauty of the soul's journey. And in many ways, you can think of it as the good news is, if you think about good, what is the good news? The good news is that holds us as well. Yes, the structures we've used to navigate our economics, yes, we're held in that. But that's a small construct. The language we use to talk to each other, that's a small construct. You think about all the various things that are these sorts of human-made or situational constructs that we are part of. They're so plentiful that they feel like life itself, and yet there is more. And that's the good news, that these people, the spiritual journey, and I've had this experience too, I know you have, rests in that landscape. And that is a thing of beauty. So that's just the first thing, is what a awe-inspiring what an awe-inspiring reality that is. And we think about it as our religious journey, or our soul's journey, or our spiritual life, but that it rests within this kind of sense of awe. How do people tap into that? Well, there's many different ways. That's the other part of this, right? So while this more holds us all, we all find that we float or move in that space in a particular way. So connected to another person, or to another authentic life experience, right? When he's so connected, that moment of authentic connection just sparkles with the grandeur of this other, this more. As Martin Buber said, right, the sparks that fly in that moment are the divine. Clearly, that deep sense of moments of connection to that is what for John was his current kind of spiritual reality. For Cole, who saw that the religious life and the world of philosophy and big ideas, it provides him a sense of resiliency to be able to manage and buoy his way through all that life brings him, and that it is pulling him into a bigger sense of himself, almost like a sense of how to find his own purpose or place in world. That draw that all of that is for him is like his river flowing to the sea. Right? He's he sees himself within that journey, and the journey itself gives him this sense of calm and awe as well, right? He's more of a journey person rather than the connection person, right? Bob and Joan talked about the ways in which practices, historic practices that they've been a part of for so long that they've found open up for them new insights and invitation and connection to past and hope for future. That patterns or ritual allows them that sensitivity. For Bob, swimming in the water, and for Joan, being a part of a communion service that links her to her heritage. That's their way of finding their way into the great sea and trusting themselves to that. And for Victoria, the last gal I met with, this sense of kind of this almost like allowing yourself a capacity for authentic vulnerability, to being fully present for all of that to just rise up and embrace you, and to experience it in your flesh and your bones, and to know that it's a presence that holds you. It's a beautiful thing. So everybody has their way of engaging it. It's just it obviously should make you smile, right? It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful part of what it means to be alive. So, I think that to summarize what we've learned so far, or what we've gleaned so far from these conversations, is that this experience of the more, it's totally available to you, right? It is always available to you. It is present for you. And to somehow, no matter where you are in your journey right now, wherever if you're thinking, no, I don't really have I don't, I'm struggling, or whatever it happens to be, it is there for you. It's not going anywhere. It is just, either on the other side of the veil, if you're sort of fuzzy about where it is, it's there. And that's something you can kind of confidence in and trust in. And I would say the other piece of that puzzle is that it does not require you to really figure it out, right? It just requires you to sort of show up, and it will reveal itself in some ways to you, right? It is that kind of energy. How do you not, in a sense, construct it like it's some sort of dogmatic position? It's almost like thinking about, faith is not really constructing or buying into a definition of it, but rather just leaning into that experience somehow, trusting that experience somehow is a huge part of this, I think. And that's something that we can all do, right? And we should all be doing. The other thing is that one thing that was also a part of everybody's journey that had a kind of a robust conversation about the soul is that they all had some sort of practices that they engaged in to connect to that more, right? They all had a way to get down to the seashore. And that's something to think about, right? What is your way of being down at the shoreline? Or I remember Lori was telling me that she's been going on these what she calls awe walks, where it's an intentional kind of way of walking in nature and just noticing it, so it shows up for you in a way that invites you into awe. And awe is clearly a part of everybody's experience of this. Deacon Lou used to practice Tai Chi. I don't know if it was daily, but it was one of the ways in which he oriented his body, in my mind, to the more. And that's another beautiful way of doing it. It could be just simply reading poetry or great works or biblical stories and letting that metaphor or that narrative world hold you. It could be like John, slowing down and being present for the other. It could be like Bob and Joan, where you find some ritual that you do every day or once a week that allows you access to this kind of experience. Or maybe it's just a matter of, like with Victoria, learning ways in which you can soften around the edges so that it has more presence in your life. All of those are practices that you have some control over, that I think we've learned are linked to this experience. Ignoring it is not your best option. Showing up and listening to me is not the thing itself, but at least it might help you a little bit, right? But just simply ignoring that it's there, that's not going to be a good approach. So find some approach that works for you. The last thing I wanted to say about this, and then I'm going to wrap up today a little early, is the other thing that I've noticed along the way is this amazing fluidity inside of what arises in this process. How to describe that? I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, the primary goal of the religious system was to build a strong foundation, right? The church is one foundation. Or you imagine faith or Christ as a rock, something solid. And you just wanted something solid to stand on. And that, I think, is what we've discovered. That is absolute illusion. There is no fixture in this thing. It moves like currents in the ocean. It swirls like the wind or breath. It is got a dynamism to it, and that's, you got to cut yourself a little bit of slack in this, because it is fluid, that when you feel like you've arrived at some place, and this has happened to me over and over again, I have to I have to be present in that place, but I can't lock that place down and make that where it ends. But it can't, it just won't end. It just keeps drawing you either deeper or into more complexity or nuances, or it resonates with your life experience. And so you are always moving into it. And so there's a fluidity to it that you have to sort of trust yourself to. You have to entrust yourself to, right? You have to say, this is going to be something that's going to be evolving and changing and reforming itself my entire existence. And that is a beautiful thing, right? So that as you find some discovery along the way that brings you great joy, you don't want to cling to it so much that it becomes your destination, right? That you've arrived. But you want to celebrate it and allow it to be present for you, and it will not probably ever leave you. You'll always have that as a frontier. It's always been tricky for me, just on a personal note, as a clergy person, in that I committed to vocationally to being in one kind of theological camp on this thing, and then to promote that theological camp my entire life, all 27 years of this career. And frankly, I've really struggled to do that, and it's because of this problem of fluidity, right? It's just an ever changing, ever evolving thing. I'm in such a different place than I was when I was in my 30s or my 20s. You know that to be true. So just being okay with the fluid nature of this allows you to embrace the story of another, where they are in their process, right? And to learn from it, and to ask questions, be curious about it. Also to acknowledge where you're at, and you can do that with confidence, and at the same time knowing that you are also always going to be invited into new awareness, new understanding, expanded sense of consciousness about where you are in the world and how you relate to neighbor and self. All that is going to be very liquid and fluid. The song, as we dealt with the pandemic, right? We realized that the entire planet breathes as one. And so this movement of my breath is constantly circulating its way around the planet, right? And that can be that's sort of a bad thing when it comes to a virus, right? But it's also this beautiful thing that the entire planet is in this dynamic breathing in and breathing out. We're always kind of in this together, and it's always kind of changing and evolving. It's a way to think about it as being fluid. All right. So where do we land on all this? I think if you just hang on to some of the insights we've gleaned so far, I think it can help you kind of navigate, and help me kind of navigate how can we best engage each other in community in a way that energizes, encourages, motivates, guides us individually and collectively. And I think one of the ways is through this sharing time. And even though I'm the one telling you what I'm learning along the way, it's coming from you, from people's actual lived experience. And so my proposal is, and this is sort of where I want to end, what I hope to do in the next couple months is to migrate this time into a live experience, as well as a Facebook Live experience, so that at 9 o'clock people could gather I would share some of the insights, and then we would morph it right into kind of a conversation for those who can be here physically. And then we would, if possible, with technology, invite those who are online to join us via Zoom. So we can kind of process in real time some of the insights that we're gleaning along the way. And then that whole package will be used as the format for our podcast series, Soul Forum, that will then invite other people to kind of listen along and to not only hear my reflections on the interviews that we have during the week, but then we're going to invite another person who we'll disclose later to also interview them and try to kind of get the backstory about what are the stories that you think you can point to in your life that kind of brought you to this place. You know, what are the, you know, kind of the lived experiences you've had that helped you arrive at this place, and to kind of learn about their spiritual journey from that perspective too. So a lot of ideas for moving forward. Hopefully sometime as we do that, you might be able to join us for one of our live experiences as well at 9 o'clock down here at the plant. All right. Okay, that's it for today. I gotta say, thanks for hanging out today. I know this is sort of a summary piece, but I think it's important just to pause every so often and go, what are we learning when we look at all this together, and how might it inform us? Just a couple of announcements too as we move forward. As you know, if you're a part of the community that I serve here in Lafayette, today all of our high schoolers are getting together and with White Pony Express and doing some volunteer work. So that's happening from 12:30 to 2:30 today, big event. Also, just a reminder that we're starting to put together some special events for kids. And so on October 10th, which is coming up, we're going to honor the way in which this community reaches out into the world with a relationship to Lutheran World Relief and their quilting program. And we have people who put quilts together all year long, and then we ship them off to places in need. And our kids will help to design some of those quilts to be constructed and learn about Lutheran World Relief and all the things that are going on with how we serve our neighbor across the planet in times of need. So that'll happen on October 10th. So feel free to come down and participate in that. And then the last two things, it was just a super, it was one honor on my part to be able to participate in the glorious celebration of Deacon Lou's life yesterday. And for those of you who joined us, thanks for being a part of that. Just the stories and the pictures of his life were just a beautiful way to celebrate Lou, who served in this congregation as a deacon and a caring minister here in this community. And then finally, here at this church, we've been working really hard. A few things that are required that we do now put the price point beyond what we've got money to do. So you're going to find out this week in a letter that goes out to you what you can do to help. We gotta push this one more time so we can get this thing done. So more news on the kitchen renovation project coming to your mailbox. So watch for that. All right, all. I'll see you all next week at 9 o'clock. I'll be meeting with Candy this week, who I think brings a little bit of a sense of how kind of social activism fits into her spirituality. And I think that's a piece that we haven't talked about yet. And I'm looking forward to asking her how that manifests for her. So next week, a little bit of an exploration into her perspectives. I've given her passion for kind of social activism in the world. So join us next week for that. And have a blessed week falling deeply into the ocean that holds us all. Bye-bye.